My name's India. I am a plus size woman in 2021 and I have always been big my whole life. I'm 25 years old, 26 this year, and I am very, very passionate about what it means to be a plus size person because I genuinely think that people don't actually understand it. They just think that people are fat and that's what they are, rather than that it means something to be a plus size person, that you are a marginalized person. It literally does embody your whole life, even if you don't want it to. And that's not a bad thing. Just because you are fat or you are big or you are plus size or whatever you want to label it as, that doesn't have to be a negative just because someone makes it a negative. Like, it's not. They're wrong. I think roughly 7 or 8 is when I found out I was big. And that's when people started treating me differently for being big. In probably, I think it was year 5, it may have been younger, I can't quite remember. We were all lined up in a big line in high order to be trotted into a room with a nurse to be told that we were fat and weighed in front of the whole rest of our year. And then we were put on a big list of like, you're fat, you need to lose weight, you're skinny, you need to put on weight. We were told in front of everyone if we were big or small, and then when we left the room, the people that didn't hear it would ask other people, oh, so how much did so-and-so weigh? And so it would all just get out, and everyone knew that I was one of the highest weights. I don't think I was the highest one. But for some reason that didn't matter. I don't think I even weighed the most out of our year, but that didn't matter because of who I was and because of the way that I was. People acted like I was the most morbidly obese person in the universe. And like, don't get me wrong, I know I am big, but I just remember kids really going ham at me, really treating me like rubbish just because I was like one of the bigger kids. And I remember because the nurse said how unhealthy it was and how damaging it was and things like this, that the kids all picked up on those terms, and that became, you're medically unacceptable. The nurse says that you're unacceptable, so you are unacceptable. It became a very common situation to know that, yeah, I was different, like I felt like I was, and yes, people are now treating me differently because of this reason. One of the other things that happened to me in the late primary school era would probably be when I realized that I could no longer do sports. So I was no longer a desirable person to be in any sports teams. I was no longer someone that people wanted to be near or associated with when doing sport. So although prior to that, or maybe even during finding out about how much I weighed, I was very, very healthy, constantly swimming, constantly doing hockey, constantly in netball tournaments. I used to go to netball every summer for a netball school. I used to do so much sports when I was younger. I was very, very, very fit. And all of that became null and void. No one really cared anymore that I could run just as quick and just as far. You're just constantly told as a kid, you're unhealthy unless you do these things that we tell you you should be doing. And so that goes for skinny people as well. Like, I'm not trying to say that only big people were pushed into boxes. Everyone's pushed into boxes. But I really think for bigger people, those boxes are just ironically too small. We are told we have to like a sport that is provided to us within a educational circumstance rather than maybe a sport that we could find elsewhere. So like many of the people that I know that are plus size either do swimming or they do some sort of kickboxing or martial arts or things like this that they love. Those aren't provided within educational facilities, so therefore they're invalid. I feel it doesn't matter that you like swimming because I need you to like football and I don't like football, so why would I like force myself to pretend like I want to run around a pitch kicking a ball? I feel like at primary school when kids are still developing, that gets something that gets stuck in their head really, really easily, and that primary education becomes those social triggers that then influences their whole life. And that's why secondary school can be so horrific, because they are taught in primary school to have these edges and these subconscious emotions and feelings and prejudices, and then that just builds and builds with hormones and emotions in secondary school. So when I moved to secondary school, I very much moved with a lot of the same kids from primary school. You failed to shake off a lot of the stigmas that primary school left you with, but that was okay because I was still slightly bigger and I didn't mind. But come mid year 7 to early year 8, I went through a lot of changes in myself, probably to do with my hormones, probably to do with growing up. And I developed quite young, so it probably wasn't too much to do with my hormones, but maybe the influence of other people's hormones within that community. And I found myself losing a lot of weight. Completely by accident, didn't mean to do it, to the point that I would argue I was perfectly normal, if you want to call it that. So although I say I've been big my whole life, there have been stages where I have been normal. However, the reason that I classify myself as being big my whole life is because during the stages of my life where I did lose weight, I was still constantly referred to as the fat friend and the fat student and the overweight person, and I was neglected in parties and neglected in sports and neglected in even education, arguably. I was always sort of laughed at and pushed to the side. So even during stages where I was the same size as a lot of the healthier girls that were running tracks and doing all sorts of things, I was still always second best or 30th best. I was always ignored more than everyone else. And I really think that that is so dangerous. And rather than promoting me and getting me to do things that I enjoyed during those years and making me feel good about myself and reinforcing all those positive things that happened, because it had happened so naturally. There was nothing wrong with me losing weight. I didn't lose weight through stress, maybe a little bit to do with a bit of bullying I went through, but it wasn't horrific bullying. It was just normal kid bullying. And so had I been positively influenced by both my teachers, preferably students, although kids are kids, there's only so much you can say without teachers having to get involved, and even by home life in and of itself, I probably would have been quite a fit and healthy young girl. But rather than receiving any of the positives, I was still called fat, I was still called lazy, I was still called useless. And so I was like, well, what's the point in not eating what I want to eat and being this weight if I'm still going to be fat no matter what? And so at size probably 10 in year 7 to 8, so I was about 11 till 12 years old, was when I was probably at my skinniest. I was probably a size 10, maybe 12. I had my adult body in those years, so a size 10 was quite small for me. I bloomed. My boobs got bigger, my bum got bigger, school uniforms became a nuisance. I did bloom really quite quickly because I just felt like, well, what's the point in caring? Because no one cares. No one found me attractive because, you know, I was just the fat friend. People would be friends with me so they looked more attractive. I know this because people told me. I know that I was always the person used to make other people look better, whether that be athletically, whether that be morally in some cases, or whether that be in appearance. I was very much everyone's ugly friend. I know I had one friend who used to let me borrow her clothes just so that she could laugh behind my back about the fact they didn't fit properly. And I didn't know because I was ignorant and just thought that this person that's being nice to me might actually just be being nice to me rather than thinking they had a second agenda. And the worst thing about that for plus size people is that we grow to distrust everything. We are told when we are kids, trust everyone, obviously not bad people, but to trust people, to, you know, good intentions are good, you have to be good to get things back, so you always try and be nice. And as big people, we're always so friendly and we try our hardest, but in the end you sort of get taught to be a horrible person or you get taught to be a mistrusting person because you can't trust what people say to your face anymore, and it causes a lot of insecurities and a lot of really messed up paranoia. I can't speak for everyone, but it takes me months to trust someone. I've grown even now at 25 years old. My relationship with my partner, when I first met him, I thought it was a prank for a YouTube video. Genuinely, hands down, that's what I thought it was. I did not think it was real. And I genuinely put that down to the fact that in secondary school and primary school, I'd put my trust in these people only for it to be absolutely shredded. And I just think it's so tough when people can't just respect you as a human being and they see you as something else, which is what I feel like being a plus size woman is like. You lose some of that humanity. You start to feel like something else to other people. It warps your mind when you look in the mirror. You see everything wrong before you see anything right. You buy a nice outfit on the internet and then you instantly, the second it's press purchase, you go, oh, well, I won't look good in it. Like, it's constant feelings of just absolute fear at everything that you do in your life. And I really think that stems from being a kid. And no matter what you did, no matter how you performed, no matter what you looked like, no matter who you were surrounded by, you were always different. And you were always something to be compared to. It was never like you were just one of everyone. You were always the undesirable. In secondary school, I got in with a crowd who I thought at the time were going to be the best for me. And in fact, to be fair, they helped me grow a lot. Not intentionally, but they did. And I got very into drink and other things at an extremely young age. I think the first time I got paralytic, I was probably 13 in a public park. But the reason why I did all these things was because I needed something to feel cool. I needed something to cling to feel accepted. And if I hung out with these people who'd given me a chance and I went to their houses that I'd never been to before and I did things I'd never done before, then at least I had friends and I had people that wanted to spend time with me and people that, you know, liked me. I think some of the weirdest things that happened were just because they weren't who I thought they were. So a lot of the times I would be going to their parties and it was all a very sexual type event. I grew up sort of knowing a lot about sex. Sex was never a hidden thing for me or anything like this, but I was always sort of taught that as a bigger girl, I wasn't sexy and that there was nothing attractive about me. And so there's no point in even caring about it. Like, I really didn't think I was gonna lose my virginity until I was very, very old, because I was basically taught that who would want to have sex with you. And I think going to all these parties and things and seeing all this sex and kissing and events happening around me, it made it very confusing. And I remember men hitting on me. There would always be the good looking guys and then there would be their creepy friends. And I was always the girl that got pushed towards the creepy friends and the friends who definitely shouldn't be hanging out with 13 and 14-year-old girls. I would be told that when they came on to me and things like this, I should be grateful, I should just get on with it. Just do it. You gotta lose your virginity, you've gotta have a boyfriend, you've gotta do anything they want. You've got to show parts of your body that you shouldn't be showing as a 13-year-old girl and taking pictures of and webcamming and all this stuff. You shouldn't be showing them, but because you're big and because you're undesirable, you better do it because it's the only way you'll ever get attention. And I think that really messes you up. I remember back then, it's so vivid for me, remembering how normal I thought all these situations were and how really scary I think of them now as the age of some of the people I was hanging around with. I remember a gent who was about 20, he must have been 24, 25, ringing me up and asking me to do some pretty explicit things on the phone when I was only 13. It must have been about 13. And he got me to do some really serious things because I'm ugly and I'm hideous and I'm fat and no one's ever going to want to do it in real life. So if I do it on the phone, at least, you know, I'm entertaining one person. And I would get really twisted. People would spin me and spin me and spin me around. That happened a lot at parties. So the guys would go to all the attractive girls, try and get with them. And then when they couldn't, they'd be like, come on, India, you know you'll do it because no one else is going to give it to you. And like, I'm not necessarily saying all of this is the full Monty, but a lot of the time I would kiss people and be with people that really nothing is good about them, just because it was a way to have friends and it was a way to give myself some feeling of being pretty, even though every time they would remind me that it's because I wasn't pretty that they'd finally land upon me. I just remember constantly being reminded of how I looked. Constantly. I think the best compliment I got pre-age 18, maybe even older, was that my personality was good. That is genuinely the best compliment I got, and that was only because it was easier to say that than to say nothing. I remember growing up, people were telling me, oh, you're the needy one, you're attention seeking, you're this, you're that, you're that. And it's not until now that I'm in a committed long-term relationship that I realized, no, I was just asking for a decent human. I wasn't fussy. I wasn't like asking for like Brad Pitt or like Zac Efron or anything. I was just asking for someone that, you know, actually liked me and actually treated me with any sort of respect. And I think for a lot of plus size people, that is experiences that I think so many women, maybe, I don't know about men, can understand. I know I've spoken to a lot of people who've had very similar first encounters like I have. I remember the first boyfriend that I had, he literally told me that I was just a stepping stone, and I was with him for a year or more, and he said that he was with me because he knew it would make other girls jealous eventually, and that he then moved on to bigger and better things. but ironically he still slips into my DMs once in a while. The thing about being a plus size person in any sort of relationship, any sort of sexual encounter, anything that way, is you are always a hidden secret. You are always someone that people outwardly say they despise, but then they'll sneakily message you and say, oh, actually I really like big girls, I really like your boobs, I really like your bum, I really like your hips. And like, it's only now as we start to like thicker women who are just women with normal hips and normal bellies, that it becomes a little bit more acceptable to openly say that you like a plus size woman. But a plus size woman is only someone under the size of size 18. I know I've spoken to a few people about this, not everyone have had these experiences, but some things that I have done to myself and the dangers that I have presented myself with, you would never expect a child to be able to deal with that. I have done so many things just to feel wanted and to feel needed. I have booked hotels with men that I barely know just to get some attention. I have gone to men's houses when I've lied to my mum and said I was at my female best friend's house just to get some sort of attention. I have nearly missed shifts at work just because I've been somewhere that I don't know and I got lost. I walked once for... So this shows how fit I am. I walked once for an hour and a half, if not longer actually, to a middle of a farm to do some illicit things and then to try and stumble home by myself in the pitch black, to the point that I broke down and cried and rang my auntie because I couldn't handle it anymore. I've done some really messed up things because I feel like they're the only way that I can get the attention that I need, and it terrifies me that there are people going through the same things, because I put myself in horrific places and really scary situations just because I needed some attention. And then the irony that the males in my life at the time would say, well, you're not going to get raped because you're fat. And it's like, what? And definitely have been. Everything about your life is invalidated and becomes null and void. I wasn't going to get murdered walking down the street at midnight in the pitch black because I'm fat. I wasn't going to get kidnapped and raped because I'm fat. I'm not going to get put into a sex ring because I'm fat. But a lot of these things, being passed around men that are years older than me and constantly abused and treated, these happen to me. It doesn't matter that I'm fat. But as a fat woman, any sexual experiences you have become null and void. Like, people don't think it happens, and so you're overlooked. And I think that's some of the hardest things about being plus size, is that everything you go through is invalidated. You're constantly told you're wrong, and you are constantly told that your experiences aren't true, or you misthought about it, or you misunderstood, or you should be grateful, or whatever it is, and it's just simply not true. Like, we all go through really, really horrible stuff, and it's time that you just listened. Being a plus size adult comes with a lot of its own stigmas and issues. It comes with a lot of media and attention, not always positive, not always negative. So there are other illnesses like lymphedema and lipedema, which are just normal illnesses that cause fluid to build up in the body, and it's completely got nothing to do with how much you weigh, it's got nothing to do with how you live your life, it's got nothing to do with anything, but it can add stones and stones to you, and it can make your legs or your arms or wherever it may be look really swollen, and it's really uncomfortable for the people. But rather than thinking, oh God, that's so horrible, people mock these people and say, oh, you just got fat legs, or you got fat arms, like go and walk, go and do some exercise. These people cannot walk. Like, it is agony to even stand up. It is ridiculous that people just don't seem to understand that fat illnesses half the time aren't fat illnesses. They aren't illnesses that breed from being fat. The illnesses breed fatness. We're constantly, as plus size people, told to hurt ourselves and to cause ourselves pain, because if we do that, then at least we'll be skinny, and then we can deal with the real issues. And it's just not right. It's just really not fair that every time I have a sore throat, I'm told, well, drink some water and also lose some weight. Medically, we are constantly told that we are wrong, and they create nonsense things like BMI standards to hold us to, which BMI is not real. Just one quick Google will tell you that BMI means nothing, yet our whole healthcare system is based off of it. I haven't been diagnosed with any sort of eating disorder, but I do find it very ironic when people tell me to eat less, because I have calorie counted how much I eat in a day, and I have looked at it. I eat 1 meal a day. Sometimes I might eat 2, but I very, very likely only eat dinner. I do not eat breakfast at all. Never in my whole life. I don't eat breakfast. Then once in a while I might eat a sandwich at lunch, but I always eat dinner. And that's kind of it. And then I snack, and that's where a lot of my issues come from, is I snack. But when I counted calories and I stopped snacking during that, I figured out that my meals were literally 400 to 500 calories. That's all I ate. And then I realized when I was watching all these dieting things, they were saying I should be eating about 1,600 calories, and I would still be losing a significant amount of weight. On days when I tried to up my calorie intake, the most I could get it to was 1,000 calories. Which is what I find so funny when people then tell me to eat less. Because it has nothing to do with the portions that I eat. It is some of the choices I make, and I am very open about that sometimes the choices that I make are not appropriate for me. You see different clinics and helpful things, but you just see nothing for big people. We have to pay out of pocket if we want to go and try and medically change ourselves. I think it's something like 10 grand in the UK for a gastric sleeve, which is what I've researched to be the best thing for my size. But if someone's anorexic and is about to die, which they say fat people are about to die and we're more prone to die, so what's the difference with an anorexic versus a fat? They get all the medical help for free, and they don't even have to get to the full anorexic stage to be considered for that. They can just be slowly getting there, whereas I'm slowly getting bigger, and the most I got offered was a 12 weeks NHS step plan where they weighed me and then asked me what I'd eaten for the week and sent me home. That was it. There was no help. There was no control. There was no anything. It was just, okay, you weigh this. Okay, what did you eat? Oh, you ate a jack potato. Good, well done. Oh, you ate a Twix. Not so good. Okay, off you go. So my main goal in life, and should I get any sort of fame or any sort of power, I guess is the better word, would be to make the world understand my story and to understand the fact that my story isn't a 1 in a million thing. It's so common amongst plus size women, and I'm sure plus size men, and I want them to realize how easy it is to change these things and how easy it is to change your outview, change your opinions, change your behavior, to upgrade equipment, to stop your preconceptions. It's so easy for a GP to not ask me how much I weigh when I say that I have a cough. Like, it's so easy for a doctor's appointment to have the right chair for me to sit in. It's so easy for people to not assume that I do no exercise just because I'm big. And it's easy to not comment on other people's eating just because you think you can. You don't have a right, so why are you? I think going forward in the world, what we need to realize is how many plus size people there are, how many people are plus size for various reasons, and how it's none of your business. It has to start in the media, I think, because they're the ones that hold so much influence over the rest of the world. It's so important for the media to stop reporting on people's weight as if that holds any sort of importance whatsoever, because it just doesn't. It doesn't matter if someone from Towie is having weight loss surgery while his ex-girlfriend is losing the weight naturally. We should be happy for both of them if they want to lose weight. If they don't want to lose weight, good on them as well. It simply does not matter. And I think out of anything in the world that I would like to scream about is that it's just none of your business, and there is a person beyond the fat, and there is a person beyond the weight, And unless you want to get to know that person and become friends with that person and you care about that person, your comments don't matter. You don't matter, and you don't need to be heard by that person, and that person doesn't need to care about what you're saying just because you said it. Because so much of the population now is plus size, it's just another type of person that we need to adapt for. And that shouldn't be something to be shamed or something to be hidden away or something to be manipulated or adapted. Like, the person shouldn't be adapted. The world can be adapted. These simple things would just help prevent a lot of suicides and a lot of detrimental behavior towards people's mental health and declining in mental health. And these simple changes, which just so easy to implement and no one seems to do it. We just have to learn that plus size people are people, and they are gonna need different things and different support networks and different equipment and different lives, and that's fine.
If you or anyone you know has experienced anything discussed in this video, there is always help out there. You need to be heard, and it's time to speak up for what truly matters.